Gentlemen, what is good? I know it's good on my end right now in life, and it's virtually everything. Feeling real good, feeling excited about life. I hope you guys are too. In this video, I want to talk about why your woman is a feminist. And it is true. She is a feminist. And I'm going to give you 2 quick points as to why she is, and then I'm going to give you 2 big points as to why, where I'm coming from with this. Point number 1 is she's solipsistic, which means solipsism is the definition is there's nothing outside of the self, and that's a point to come at you right off the bat because I'm just trying to give you the truth, and it's going to be something. It's like drinking out of a fire hose here. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's how women have innately evolved. That's how they were created. It makes total sense. As a Christian, I'm a man who actually believes in ancient Earth. I believe that God did create. I do believe in God, and I can tell you why real quick. And this is off topic on the video. Why I know I believe in God is because I don't know if you've ever had an AR-15 pointed to your face. I have. I've had a number of other situations where, when that had happened, where I couldn't fight or flight, right? Instead of freezing, what I did was I actually prayed to God, as if I knew God was there, and I was praying hard. A couple other times that I've had situations where, I don't know if you've ever had the state tell you when you can and cannot see one of your children. I've had that happen to me, and I felt vulnerable and felt weak and felt like I couldn't be there for my kid. And what I did was, the only thing I could do was pray. Okay, so at my most vulnerable times in life, I prayed to God, whether He's there or not. That's how I know that deep down inside I do believe in God. All right, and those might be weak examples, but those are my examples nonetheless. So let's get back to solipsism. That women have been evolved and created to basically be, they have to. They're the caretakers. They're the incubators. They are the physical weaker sex, and over tens of thousands of years of human development and human, evolving into what we are, into modern day people, they've had to look out for themselves. When men go off to war, they have to look out for themselves. They have to look out for their children. When men die at war and they get taken in as war brides, right, from the other tribe, they have to look out for themselves. That's just the way women are. And so that feeds into feminism today. Feminism, what it does is it gives women the ability to do everything that a man can. And today, women can do everything that men can do, virtually everything. And so when they talk about equalism and equal rights, we ask the question, what rights do women don't have that men do have? And they won't have an answer for it. But the reason why they won't have an answer, and the reason why they'll keep pushing, is because innately they're pushing for themselves as if it's going to go away, because they may actually think that those rights will go away, and they never will. Abortion will never go away. The laws that are in place for child support, family court laws, these things are never going away. And so women have it relatively good today. And, feel what you want about that. The reason why that happens is because women came into power, women had the vote, and what they did was they voted for themselves. And we see that in laws today. We see that in family court systems. We see that even in when they occupy jobs. I worked in mental health for, I would say 8 to 10 years. Mental health, I did social services, and I will tell you that those fields are dominated by women, especially mental health. Today, you might have 12% men that work in mental health. And what do you see happen? You see psychology today defining what masculinity as a problem. Why? Because the women are redefining what the rules are in those fields. All right, so your woman is a feminist in large part because she's solipsistic. She's developed that way because she needs to know how to take care of herself and her family and her kids. And that's, I'm not hating on women for that. And what I'm saying is that's a very natural thing. We just didn't understand that when we allowed women to come into power. And now it's become some sort of vacuum where it's pushed men to the side. It's basically put men on the fringe. And men have none of the authority and they have all of the responsibility because women don't know how to live with the responsibility. They're constantly pushing. They have the power, but they don't know how to take the responsibility of really being in charge of stuff. And I know that I won't get much into that, but that is a key. It's true, and that's for another video today. And I've experienced that even in my workplace. And that I plan on doing a video in the future is why I left the workplace and why I left the school that I was working for, and virtually because the men had so much of the responsibility and had none of the authority, and it was as if we were just expected. I worked in a workplace where, there was violence that occurred, and in mental health it was predominantly female, and the number of men were dwindling down, especially the number of masculine men dwindling down. And I got down to being one of the last few guys, and I just got tired of it. We were expendable, and they just thought that we were expected to put ourselves and our bodies on the line, and it got tiresome for me. It really did. And they didn't realize that, shit, you can't kick men out. And they're going to realize, even in a violent workplace, when they come into power, they don't let men have any types of power or any types of authority. And it's a real problem. Even in a workplace where there's physical violence, where they need men's protection, they won't get it until the shit hits the fan. And that's a big lesson that we need to learn in society today. All right? So, quick point number 2, or I should say 1A, was they're solipsistic. 1B is the fact of the matter is we are all feminists. Okay, so before you start criticizing me about talking about women being feminist, we're all feminists. I'm a feminist. I have no say in the matter. I've been raised on the Disney propaganda of uplifting women. I innately, and just in the way that I am as a man, like if I see a woman getting hit on the street by a man, right, which I never have, I probably would run to that situation and help her. Where if it were the other way around, I saw a woman wailing on a guy, I might just naturally think, all right, well, he can handle himself, he might even deserve what's going on. And that's a natural thing. I mean, that's a product of, I don't want to say feminism as much as it is evolution, but it's also feminism. Feminism is so prominent in our culture today that we don't even realize that we are all feminists. It's like men, why there's white knights today, because they will come to the rescue of women. Our society will come to the rescue of women. And I see this day in and day out. And I've seen this on high corporate levels. I've seen this on the level where I work at the school I was working, where, the few men, even though we were paid some of the lowest wages and we had no say in the matter, whenever the violence would occur, it was our duty to come and to help. Okay? That was our duty. And we just did it with no questions asked. And whenever, the organization I worked for was one of the largest nonprofits here in and I'm going to give you a couple points here. And this is one on the nonprofit level from my personal experience, and then one on a corporate level that I've seen from my wife, right? And the example that I'm going to give you from my perspective, from my end here, my experience at my job, was that what was I going to say? That the organization I worked for is one of the largest nonprofits here in Pittsburgh area where I live. And it was probably the best one I've worked for. And I've worked for a number of them over the last 8 to 10 years. Excuse me. And it's one of these last ones that give you 3% raises. It was a phenomenal organization. 3% raises every year. They matched your 401k. Salary sucked, but at least they gave you those things. The previous 4 nonprofit organizations I worked for didn't give you shit. No raises, no matches, nothing. And they were large enough where they had like 4 or 5 locations throughout Allegheny County. Within those 4 to 5 locations, there was literally one man in a supervisor position. One. And he was the head of the entire company. And as soon as he's done, there'll be no more. And you'll see that none of the men that work for the company have any squawks or squirms about it. They don't say anything about it. They don't even think about it. They're not in supervisor positions. Some of them are in therapist positions, but most of them are in like lower end roles. And this whole push for equalism, it's not a push for equalism. It's a push for overturning. It's women in what I do, and I explain this to people. I say, there's 167 I think 167 or 187 million workers in the United States, and out of those 100, we'll call it 67 million, 2 million of them are workers that will work in a work environment where they are most likely to experience acts of violence. And I was just touching on this. And at my job, I was a crisis trainer. One of my roles was I was a crisis trainer, and I trained people on how to deal with crisis intervention, how to prevention, intervention, post intervention, with with dealing with kids hitting you, hitting each other, all types of stuff I've seen. I won't even get into it, but even in an environment where there is violence and you openly need men with high levels of testosterone to deal with it, masculine men, they will push the masculine men out, and to the point where they don't even see it as a problem. They won't see it as a problem. So you have to understand that we are living in a world where everybody is feminist, because even the men that are working for these companies, they don't acknowledge that. They can't even see that they're getting pushed out, that they don't have any roles of responsibility. Well, they have responsibility, they just have no authority. And they have tons of responsibility with no authority, and that's just widely accepted. They don't think anything around it. They don't care. Men are just accepting it. Why? Because we're all feminists. Otherwise, we would be like, dude, I can't deal with this. The other quick point I'll give you, in up to 11 and a half minutes, we'll keep this video around 20 minutes. The next 2 points after this I want to give you are kind of the more significant ones. But yeah, so this next one is that what I've seen over COVID, staying home a lot. My wife works from home. I work from home now, thank goodness. So what I've literally seen with her is there are in the corporate world, and she works for a Fortune 500 company, there are the men up top, and then there's right below them there's tons of females. And I've personally seen this where women were given supervisor roles and failed to meet those needs, and instead of reprimanding them, instead of actually, there was a point where there was a supervisor, and I'll just give a brief example. A supervisor had someone reporting to her underneath her, where she was doing all the work and not doing any of the delegating, and the person underneath her had nothing to do and had to jump to the person on top number of times to be like, dude, nothing's going on. So instead of reprimanding the supervisor, they just kind of changed the rules. They didn't want to offend the supervisor, who was a female, because they didn't want to hurt her feelings. And I've seen a number of times even where the females will go to the male, and this is on a high level of this company here. I'm talking like goes to like a senior VP of a Fortune 500 company and literally cries, saying, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that. The very next day will have access to a project dealing with the CEO. I mean, can you imagine as a man crying to a senior VP of a Fortune 500 company? I bet that goes on, and I've seen it personally. I bet that goes on across the board. I'd be willing to bet it goes on across the board, because I can only tell you what I've experienced and seen. And it's accepted, it's fine. It's like, they're gonna cry. They're women, and then as a result, they're gonna get what they want. Where does that happen? That only happens in a gynocentric social order, right? That only happens in a world where everybody's a feminist, where everybody's in on it. Everybody. I mean, look at the new Star Wars movie, for crying out loud. I mean, the new, was it Rey? She did nothing to earn her status. Luke Skywalker in the early ones had all types of struggles, right? So, yeah, the point of that was to tell you that we are all feminists. We're all in on it, because the programming has been going on for years at this point. I mean, it's been going on since the mid to late 1800s, and it's just, in the greatest society ever built, the United States, when people are comfortable, that's when you see people become feminized. I mean, there's even evidence of that happened in Rome, where Rome became feminized. And Cato, I think there was a quote on Cato, and I don't know the quote, but I'm not going to say it. But essentially, he was talking about how Rome rules the world, but who runs Rome are the women. it's just a natural consequence of men innovating and creating great civilizations, and then they get soft and there's a feminization that happens. It's just a natural thing, and we are at some point going to have to learn from this, because when Western civilization goes down, when it crashes, you have two countries in this world that are still patriarchal, that are not run by oligarchs. Okay, they're patriarchal, they're not oligarchs, they're not run by oligarchs. Okay, and they understand what's going on. Okay, and that's China and Russia. I'll just leave you with that. And I'm going to leave you with two primary examples of why, from my own personal experience. And I really spent a lot of time on this point 1A and point 1B, and so I'm going to kind of fly through the two examples. I guess I won't call them primary, but two examples. And these are two examples that are very close to me, that I've seen in my own personal life, as to why your woman is a feminist, and why. And these are two examples coming from Christian, well, one conservative home and another Christian conservative family. People that are really close to me over this past summer, when all the riots were going down, and I guess there was like a little white kid that got shot. Well, this woman and her husband, who are very close to me, were on the right end of things, right, on the alt-right. I don't know what you want to call them. I'm not a political guy. I'm tired of that shit. But she was on social media, on Facebook, talking about Black Lives Matter and how it's garbage, and I dare everybody to challenge her, and blah, 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 blah. It's cursing, blah, 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 blah. Well, I called her up, and as it turns out, she was drinking, he was drinking, and they went on this rant, and they were going back and forth, and I said, you need to delete that, you need to get rid of this. On the phone, she was dropping the N-bomb left and right, blah, 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 blah. My wife had heard it, and to this day, my wife is appalled. These people were invited to our wedding, and then all of a sudden weren't anymore. I mean, it was bad. And as it turns out, later in the night, I get a phone call from her, blaming me about how I created a problem in their marriage, about how he had left, and it's how it was my fault, and this and that. And I just, I got fed up, and I just said, you know what, you're being a bitch, I'm hanging up. And I hung up the phone. And the very next day, instead of getting a phone call for her apologizing to me, which should have happened, about her blaming me for what she had did, and for her saying these things that were just atrocious, right? She blamed me. The main problem, and if you're red-pilled, you're going to know what the main problem was. What was the main problem? It wasn't that she was, throwing the N-word on black people. It wasn't that, she blamed me for some shit that wasn't my fault. She didn't even thank me for trying to help, for calling them up and be like, you need to erase this stuff. She worked at some facility where she could have been fired if they seen this stuff, right? The main problem was that I called her a bitch, and her husband, demanded that I apologize. And of course I didn't. My wife was there the whole time, and my wife wasn't buying it. But second example is very close to somebody in family that I know, where one of the children that were born in the family were not born. This is a conservative family. One of the kids were not born. Was basically one of three children, and he was the only one that wasn't the father's son, and the father didn't know. And this is a family that I know I'm very close with, where all of the women in the family knew about this. And how it caught wind about this was, I guess, somehow my mother had found out, because she was close with this family too, and she told me. And as it turns out, none of the men in the family knew. All of the women knew that this woman had cheated on her husband, had a baby with another man, and put her husband on the line to take care of this kid, and the husband doesn't know. The child doesn't even know, and the child is now a grown man himself. And this is a conservative Christian household, and and none of the women will dare say a damn thing. And I know this from personal experience. I know this family, and it's like I've seen this firsthand. I've seen it firsthand, and that right there, that's how you know. It's like whether you're conservative politically, you think you have an exception as a woman because of your genitalia. That's feminism. Also, what's feminism and what's also evolutionary psychology is women will cuck a man and not tell. And other women will protect her and not say anything to the man because they are not innately solipsistic. They are innately about the sisterhood. That's feminism. Okay, and that's a Christian home. That's at what's the heart of feminism. It's like they don't care about equalism. They care about the sisterhood. So I'm at 20 minutes, 37 seconds. I hope those points were enriching for you. I wanted to leave you guys with that. But that is it. If you have any questions, hit me up on the comment section. I'll leave a link for my Twitter. You can reach me there. I'm hoping at some point to get some more action. I'm gonna keep coming out with videos. I got a shit ton of ideas. And the great book of Everything As Rollo Says. Also, I'm out randomly. I'll text myself ideas on videos. I've got a whole bunch of on my phone that I want to come up with. Just things in general, stuff that I experienced in my personal life. So I plan on, I keep doing this. I'm hoping at some point that you guys find this stuff useful, or at least people watch it, give it a roll. And at some point I'll get better with the video editing. Right now I just got a basic gaming PC with a webcam. I also have another cam that I can do. It's all 1080 IEP, whatever it's called. So at some point we'll get better at this, and I'll figure out how to do some video editing. I probably should have gone with Apple software, because Apple's so easy, and like all the techie guys are like, wow man, you should go with the computer stuff. And then finally, one of my really good friends who got rich at 45, 46 now, he's got his own tech company. He's like, Frank, why would you fuck with anything other than Apple? And this is a man who was like a LinkedIn, he's like a computer hacker for like a computer, for like a government system. He goes, as we get older, the most precious thing for us is time. You mess with it, Apple's going to cut so much time out for you. Yes, there's lots of restrictions, but it's just going to save you so much time. And so maybe moving forward, I'm thinking about getting a laptop for work anyway. I think I might get myself an Apple. We'll see. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. I need help with video stuff and video editing stuff. And if there's anyone out there that thinks that I have a potential to, if I could just shape up a little bit on my video editing and my presentation, I would welcome anybody's advice. All right, folks, that's it. Peace.